Hey YouTube, as we just finished the first week of Open Great League, I've been doing a lot of Beyond the Hype. So for those of you who don't know what that is, I've been looking at a bunch of these new Pokemon or Pokemon with new moves, buff moves, and giving you the real analytics behind it of whether they are strong or not, just based from like an analytical standpoint plus me playing and giving you my first like impressions on the feel. What I want to do in this episode is just truly talk about what Pokemon I think are overrated and underrated, and this is based on me having played them and just how I feel about them. So this is truly my opinion on it. You can agree or disagree, but this is what I want to do in this video. And I also want to talk about the 50-second timer because it has changed significantly how I play. Like dropping that 10 seconds, I've been way more aggressive on my swaps. So just kind of want to touch on that at the end of this video. But let's do some overrated and underrated, and I'll talk about overrated and underrated from the perspective of PV Poke rankings, because this is generally the ranking system that everyone uses to find out how strong Pokemon are, right? So in terms of, let's start with the overrated Pokemon. What I'm just going to do is just kind of go down the list, and then any ones I see, I'm going to talk about whether they're overrated. And I'm starting right at number 5 at Gastrodon. I think Gastrodon is way overrated at number 5. So if you watch my Beyond the Hype, when I looked at the analytics of it, the main reason that I think it's overhyped is because of the Body Slam. So Body Slammed got nerfed. And it went down a lot. I think it went from 60 to 50. Yeah, it went from 60 to 50 damage, which is a significant nerf in itself. Now, why Lickitung and Vigoroth dominated it with Body Slam, besides it being a very, very fast charging 35 energy move, is the fastest move charge move in the game. It was a 60 damage, but they also got a 20% same type attack bonus. So that 60 turned into 72, and suddenly you were looking at over 2 damage per energy move at a 35 move, which was insane. So one, it now got nerfed, and 2, Gastrodon does not get same type attack bonus on this because it is not a normal typing. It is a Mud Boy. And with it, you have your first move that is now a 1.43 damage per energy move on a Pokemon with an only 114 attack. I have lived this Body Slam with Pokemon when my Pokemon were in the yellow. It is the least threatening move I've seen on a Pokemon since like the Bone Club pre-buff. Like it's just one move that I'm not threatened of at all on this Pokemon. And when you have like Mud Slap slaps, don't get me wrong, that damage per turn, you feel it. And the energy is not bad. 3.33 is not bad, but it's not great. And you look at the fast move counts, 4.3 for Body Slam is a 3-turn move, right? So we're talking a 3-turn move. It's if you want to think it by seconds, a 1-turn move is half a second. A 2-turn move like Counter or Mud Shot is 1 second, and a 3-turn move Mud Slap is 1.5 seconds. So now it takes 4 of these to get to the Body Slam, which again does not threaten, but it takes 6 to get to an Earth Power. So it takes essentially 18 turns worth of moves to get to an Earth Power, which is quite slow, and that's the one you want to land. Now, people will basically say it does not matter because you can just out Mud Slap. Honestly, I'm going to talk about Kanto Marowak, I would much honestly go with Kanto Marowak or other Mud Slappers as the main Mud Slapper because that first move is significantly better. So because Body Slam is just such a bad non-stab move now, and it does not threaten me at all, I think that as a number 5 Pokemon overall, I think it's way overranked. Again, when I say it's overranked, I'm not saying that's not usable and it's not good. I'm just saying, if I had to choose, and again, for alligator at 3 and 4, if I had to choose the 4th best Pokemon, quote, I know, I'm being loose with like the actual rankings of these things of like, oh, this is the best Pokemon. Again, it's based on a Sims, based on the 1 shield, even energy against the main meta. Like, I understand that it's not a true list, but this is the list we're going by. It's not the 4th Pokemon that I would put on this list. Not at all. So I think it's very, very overrated as a 5. Or 4/5, depending if you want to get rid of the shadow or non-shadow for alligator. So I would probably knock it down a bunch. Clefable, I think at number 8 is also overranked for the same reason, and this one is actually not only just because you don't get stab on Swift. It's this. Oh, sorry, that's just my other video that was this morning. It's not like that you don't get stab on Swift, which still makes it just like again not a good move. Um, your a lot of these, not a lot of these, a bunch of these wins, some of these wins are bait dependent. So when you look at the record 21-12, it seems great. But then when you get into, I think, some of these matchups, I don't know, I forget which ones that I have off the top of my head, but see, that is a beat of Swift and then landing Swift. So like, let's just take out the Swift here and see if it can just going Moonblast. No, you cannot. You lose just going Moonblast, right? So already your first win on this list is actually a loss if you go straight Moonblast. I always find that these Pokemon that are ranked high but rely on a bait move play way worse than they are, than they're ranked. And Clefable is the same thing. It only takes 4 Fairy Winds Fairy Wind is a super fast charging move, right? 4.5 energy per turn, again 2-turn move, so it's 9. For every Fairy Wind you get 9 energy. 35 energy move takes 4 to get to. Very quick. But again, it's a terrible 55 damage is not going to do anything to the majority of the Pokemon in the Great League. So you need to land this Moonblast, which means that you either go straight Moonblast and hope it lands, or you do bait and you hope they shield. And I don't like Pokemon ranked that high that are required on you landing your nuke or baiting and having them shield. I don't like that as a top ranked Pokemon. In terms of fairies, I would probably still use Jumpluff before Clefable. I'd probably use Wigglytuff as a Charmer before Clefable. So I think Clefable there, just again, because of it's a non-stab move for starters, so it's not a good move. And then the fact that it's a bait move that actually flips some matchups because you're baiting, I don't like that. I was gonna say Machamp because Pangoro was like in the pre-rankings, like at the start of the season. Pangoro was like 8 and Machamp was at 11. And in my first video with Machamp, I'm like, it's too glassy. It's got these problems. I don't like cross chop on it. You might even want to run double nuke close combat Stone Edge for these reasons. And then they dropped it to 20. So I was ready to come in here and say like Machamp is overrated, but it's down to 20. In terms of fighters, it's still probably one of the top fighters just because that counter nerf is significant on all these other Pokemon, right? So if I know how to type here. You have Gallade, which is, again, half fighting, but I guess it does rely a bit on it, but it just relies on its like fast charging move to get to close combat and then coverage here. Haven't used Machoke, so I can't really comment it. I'll talk about this underrated in a second here. And then, yeah, you get like, this is more just like Dragon with like a fighting type move. But I mean, it is half fighting, but it's like, and then when you talk about pure fighters, you're nowadays like Machamp, Medi, and like the 108 range of Poliwrath. So, in terms of like the fighters, it is still probably one of the top fighters in this meta, but I just don't think I didn't think it was like a top 10 Pokemon in the Great League. And the rankings now show that it is not. I'm gonna have a third spot for the unknowns because I'm looking at Dunsparce and it's right now unknown. I think I'm skipping over a bunch. I'm gonna just say the ones that I think are. I was going to do overrated, underrated. I'll just kind of talk about how I think. I might as well just go what Pokemon that I also think are accurately ranked. Clodsire, Mandibuzz, Feraligatr in the top here against Carbink. I'm going to ignore because I think it's a bit overrated, but it is and it's not. So I'm just going to kind of leave it as it is. Azumarill, like all these are great. Malamar, I'm going to talk about it underrated because I think it's actually a top 5 Pokemon, quite honestly. But yeah, Quagsire. Jumpluff. I think these are accurately ranked Pokemon. Drapion, yeah, I love Drapion as a safe swap. If you watch my Drapion video, I loved it as a safe swap, but I do think it's probably ranked correctly in like the mid 20s because if you go to switches here, you can organize by switches. It is the number 2 behind double for Alligator. It is the number 2 safe swap, which I think is correct. I think it is a great safe swap, and I think it is accurately ranked in like the 20s here overall. And then the rest of these Pokemon, I'm mostly just kind of focusing on Pokemon that I think either got buffed or are going to have more of a place in this meta. So these other Pokemon, like a Marowak, and I didn't use the Shadow. I'm not going to talk about that because I didn't use the Shadow, and everyone was like, you need to use the Shadow to get its true strength. So let's just start with those overrated. Yeah, I think Gastrodon, Clefable, and Machamp were the 3 that I tested out in the top 20 that I think are probably not as high as I would have expected them to be. Underrated. I think Malamar is a top 5 Pokemon in this meta. That Psywave, if you saw my thumbnail, I said Psywave is a Shadow Claw clone from the damage and energy perspective, 4 energy and then a 3.6 damage per turn here. But it's better than Shadow Claw because it's a 1-turn move. So it actually has a better stat product than Shadow Claw here. So just the raw damage you get on Psywave is quite strong. And then being able to get to, again, these are 1-turn moves, so 10 and 12 look like a lot. But if you change your mind to like the 2 perspective, if you're thinking about it in like the 2, or the simple way is just to do like the fast turn move times this to get the overall. So again, when we talked about the Gastrodon, it was a 3-turn move and it took 6 to get to an Earth Power. So that's 18, right? So we're talking about 18 to an Earth Power. We're only talking about 10 and 12 to a Super Power and Fire Play, which are now 1.87 and 2.13 damage per energy moves with an incredible like fast move that charges fast and hits super hard. So I think Malamar is really, I think it's a top 5 Pokemon. I think why it's ranked number 9 here is because there has been a rise of fairies. And if you look at the top meta here, you have Carbink as a fairy at 6, Azumarill at 7, Clefable at 8, Jumpluff with the Fairy Wind at, I know it's not a fairy, but it has Fairy Wind at 10, right? So there's a lot of like Fairy Wind users or fairy users that are pretty high ranked. So I think that's why Malamar is accurately ranked at 9, but I think in practice it probably plays as a top 5 Pokemon. Like I said, Jumpluff is probably where it should be. I think Quagsire is where it should be. We'll talk about Dunsparce and thing. I think Shadow Marowak is underrated. I use this thing, and to get this, you need the Shadow. You need the Shadow because to get the same type attack bonus, 20% damage, and the Shadow bonus, 20% damage, for Mudslap to do 5.76, and then to have your quick Bone Club with those 2 things do 2.26 damage per energy at an almost 80 damage. This is one of the Pokemon that, like, yes, there are hard answers for it. Anything that resists the ground moves put you in a tricky spot. Now, Flying is one that if it resists the ground move, you can still hit super effective with Rock Slide, so it's not bad. Grass is obviously the trickier one where they're doing super effective against you. Ground is resisted. Rock Slide is only neutral. Rock Slide with the nerf is not a good move. So it can be taken. If you use this thing as a safe swap, so its record in the 1 shield is 19 and 13. If you use it in the 2 shield, and if you use this thing as a safe swap and like get like 1 or 2 Mudslaps ahead, so I just put 1 Mudslap ahead, your 1 Mudslap ahead is a 23 and 11 record, and 2 is kind of aggressive because of the 3-turn move, but you're right up to a 28 and 6. And it really, when I used it, it felt like this. It felt like I was always going to get shields, or I could take switch because the same type attack bonus, because the Mudslap raw damage with the Shadow bonus and the same type attack bonus combined with what is now a great, like, this is similar to in terms of damage per energy, this is actually probably more or very close to the pre-Body Slam nerf on Vigoroth. Just think of it on Vigoroth, because this is a very similar when you talk about like the attack stat, adding the 20% bonus here. Think of this Bone Club as kind of like a slightly better Body Slam with a fast move that slaps like Mud Slap. So I found that like I was always grabbing shields, even in bad matchups. Like you can get like a water Pokemon on you, but you can grab multiple shields with just Mud Slap Bone Club. So I think Marowak at 15 is kind of underrated, quite honestly. I think I will use it definitely a lot moving forward. I think this is going to be very strong. Obviously, keeping in mind that grass and flyers will be very tough for this Pokemon. And then the rest of them we're going to ignore, I think. Oh, no, we're going to talk about Chestnut. And it's not because Chestnut got buffed in anyway. It's now the new meta. And Chestnut, I used the Team Chestnut double poison. So it was basically Drapion, and I used Quillfish to test it out. Try and draw out a ground, and then Chestnut as a fighter grass beat it. Grass has always been super underrated in this meta. And not underrated, sorry, underused for sort of correct reasons. If you've been around this channel for a while, I've kind of explained it, that the strengths of the main typing games don't translate to GBL. So electric with their speed and grass being able to like evolve and power and grow easily don't translate to this game, so they're always underrated. That is why in a meta last year that was dominated by Whiscash, Quagsire, Swampert, Lantern, and a few others, there was barely any grass. Now, I know there was also dominated by Gligar and Skarmory, so understood, but the Great League meta has been dominated by water for the last like 15 seasons, and we haven't had very usable grass type Pokemon in this meta almost ever. Trevenant was very, very meta, and then Superior was there for like a couple seasons, and that it has dropped off significantly. Chestnut fit an interesting bill because it has a few things going for it. It has the fact that let's just go to the resistances. You're resisting a lot of stuff that got buffed. I mean, water's always relevant, right? So you're resisting the water, like I said, but like all the rollout users you resist, all the mud slap users and ground type users and Clodsire you resist. I mean, you take super effective from Poison Sting, but if Clodsire is running a Stone Edge Earthquake, you resist both moves from Clodsire. Malamar with Psywave, I mean, you're taking super effective from Psywaves, but the foul play is resisted, so they have to throw superpower. And so I just think that there's and look at the other end. Yes, there are some poisons and fairies that will be out there, but flying, your double weakness to flying, flyers are nerfed into oblivion. Like there's very, very, very few flyers right now in this current meta. So I think between the typing and this moveset, a very, very fast charging. We just talked about how like Psywave and Shadow Claw are so good. 4 energy and a 3 damage is pretty good for Vine Whip. And then you have, again, Frenzy Plant, one of the best, again, these legacy community day moves, one of the best in the game. Frenzy, 45 for 120, 2.67. But you also have a superpower for 40, 102 damage. So you have 2 moves in the 40-45 range that only take 10 seconds, like not even 10 seconds, 5 seconds, like 10 turns worth of moves and 12 turns worth of move to do 2 moves that do well 100 damage each. In a meta where you can hit super effective on all the waters with Frenzy, hit super hard neutral on all the things, and now with all these new rollout users, Miltank, Dunsparce, Licky as your new safe swaps, you have something to superpower them. So I think that is going to be very, very kind of strong. I think it's going to be one of those core breakers moving forward. So I think Chestnut is going to be a kind of a sneaky core breaker in the future here. Now I want to talk about the unknowns here. And the unknowns are these normal typings. I did not use Diggersby. I did use Dunsparce with Rolla, and I used Licky. And they're ranked 13 and 21. And they do play strong because they both have great stat products, right? Low attack, a good enough combo of defense. One of them are usually bad defense, but the other one, stamina, just makes up for it for a good overall stat product with the fast move rollout. And then just like, again, these moves, damage per energy are not good, but the coverage moves on these are insane in this current ground, and rock is an insane coverage for this meta. And I use them both. And so now they're the new safe swaps. So now I got to wrap my head around, okay, we had Lickitung. How does Dunsparce and Licky feel compared to Lickitung? Because Lickitung was a go-to normal type safe swap in the past. Dunsparce is ranked higher, and it's only ranked higher because you have 2 4-turn moves, and the coverage of these 2 moves, even though they're not great, are insane, right? Flyers, steals, poisons, like you just have a bunch of moves that can hit super effective against everything, as opposed to Licky and Lickitung, where Body Slam can't hit super effective against anything. You need to rely on your second move to hit super effective against anything, and those are usually non-stab. I mean, these are non-stab too, but so I'm undecided about these Pokemon. I'm undecided whether I still want to run Dunsparce, and Licky Licky as my safe swaps, or go back to Lickitung. That being said, the problem with going back to Lickitung is if Licky Licky and Dunsparce, if everyone agrees that Dunsparce and Licky Licky are good, and or Diggersby 2 are good as safe swaps, I can't bring a Lick safe swap into a normal typing dominated safe swap meta, right? So I'm kind of still undecided about these sort of three, but love to know your thoughts on anything I said. If there's any other Pokemon that you think is overrated, underrated. I have not, again, this week has been, I have not been looking for, I kind of lucked into Chestnut as a core breaker because I had it on a team, because I just had a team double week to ground. I needed an answer for that. I looked grass. I'm like, oh, Chestnut makes a lot of sense. People were also talking about how like a Abomasnow and there's other Pokemon that could play as core breakers. I haven't had the chance to try the core breaker route yet. Well, actually, we'll talk about, before we talk about the 50-second timer, we'll talk about the meta. It is pretty set already. And now now that we've tested all these Pokemon, it's now time to find out where the core breakers are. Clodsires are everywhere. A lot of people are running Mandibuzz, and a ton of people are running for Alligator as a safe swap because in the 2 shield for Alligator is insane as a safe swap. I've seen an increase in jump fluffs. Not a ton of, honestly, I think people tried Machamp and Pangoro, and again, Pangoro is tough to actually get a hold of if you don't have the IVs. And Machamp, I think, was overrated. Now, I have not seen a ton of fighters. Like, I think people are just like, oh, this is not that great, which means that these normal types have kind of risen up. So it's been a lot of like that I've seen Clodsire, Mandibuzz, Feraligatr, the normal typings, a lot of ground type Pokemon, either Gastrodon, Marowak, or I've seen some of these other like Golurks and stuff like that. A lot of people using ground type Pokemon. I had seen an increase in ice type Pokemon, and I think that was a direct effect of going after Clodsire, Mandibuzz, and like your Marowaks and stuff. I saw an increase of ice type Pokemon, Abomasnow. I saw even people bringing back Walrein. Like Walrein's kind of back from the dead here at 34 because you don't need to worry about Lantern as much anymore. So I think next time Great League comes around, which is probably going to be like 3 weeks from now, testing is done. Beyond the Hypes are done. We know how these Pokemon are now. We kind of understand the meta. It's now trying to find the core breaker and trying to find teams that work. So yeah, like don't be surprised. And Malamar, right? So don't be surprised if moving forward, you see the main meta being Clodsire, Mandibuzz, Feraligatr, Gastrodon, maybe Azumarill, Malamar, Jumpluff, the normal typings here, Dunsparce, Diggersby, Licky Licky, Marowak. Maybe you get like Machamp in there as a counter user, and then it's going to start being core breakers. People are going to start looking at grass Pokemon. People are going to start looking at ice Pokemon. Guzzlord was pretty good, so maybe you'll see some more darks here, but or more fairies to counter that. Like people are now going to start trying to figure out the core break because those 5 to 10 that I just named are the meta moving forward. I have I liked this first? I've liked many aspects of it. If you've watched my last couple of videos, I've been ranting about the bugs. I played all my sets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the legs and spinning started. So I only played 4. And then Saturday, it got worse. And I played 2 sets. And today was unplayable. I played 1 set and I stopped. And for how excited everyone was for this, the 20 seasons in, the bugs and the frame drops and everything that we've been screaming about for the 20 seasons now has not been fixed. And it's just so demoralizing to continue to play a game that is so flawed. And I just shot this morning's video like an hour ago. Go watch this morning's video to look at 2 matches where the frame drops and lag cost me the match. And you can see I explain exactly like this is what happened, this is what should have happened, and this is why it killed me. And so go watch this morning's video. You'll see exactly what the problems are. So that's unfortunate. What besides the new meta? I am liking the new meta. I'm glad I'm not seeing as many Whiscash and Quagsire. I'm glad Gligar and Skarmory are gone. Like I'm glad Lantern is pretty much gone. Not that they're gone, but they're gonna be used significantly less. I'm glad Annihilate's not on every team. So I think this new meta, although it will get small fast, I think it's a nice change from the stale meta we've had for the past like 5 seasons. The 50-second timer is awesome. I think the 50-second timer is probably one of the best things of this season. Before, when you got switch locked, it was basically like you would need to have like 4, maybe 5, but it'll call it 4 charge moves thrown before you can like get out of being locked. I find that the switch clock seems that 10 seconds feels like 30 seconds like difference. It seems like you're almost never locked anymore. And I have found myself being way more aggressive in matchups. So it's been nice just to, again, I've been testing Pokemon, so I haven't even had like a go-to team yet. Some people try to grind really hard, really early. Just like, I want to find a team and run with it from rank 1. I'm like, I like to just test new Pokemon out, learn their strengths and weaknesses, and then 4 weeks down the road, we'll start building teams that matter. Because I've been able to jump around so much, I think that's going to affect how I team build moving forward. I'm still trying to think through all the strengths of it. Obviously, Pokemon that can, with a shorter switch timer, I mean, it's not 30. They did one season where it was 30 during one of those interlude seasons, and it was crazy. That's when you're sort of like nuke, close combat, Brave Bird, Pokemon dominated because you just like charged up, double nuked, left. It's not that easy to do in the 50-second timer, but it's not easy to do. It's more playable, that style. So I think we may see, this is why I think Malamar's strong with the superpower. Like I think like Pokemon that can like throw really, really hard hitting moves that you need to reset by switching out. I think they're going to see a slight rise with this 50-second timer. I also may think you're going to see Pokemon that are generally safer being used more, because if you can just like jump around more with Pokemon, I feel like the safer Pokemon maybe have an advantage, but I haven't fully thought that through yet. I'll play some Ultra League this week, and the next time we get to Great League, I'll start team building a bit better to actually like try and gain some yellow with that. But that's my first thoughts on the meta: overrated, underrated, questionable, and then 50-second timer, and then the bugs, unfortunately. Would love to hear your thoughts on the current season, what you've been liking, what you haven't been liking, what you've been using, what you think is underrated or overrated. Let me know in the comments below. And we are looking, you may get a bonus video today. I don't know yet. I haven't decided. So I did like the Ariados this morning, and this will be the afternoon. I always have been starting these event coverage ones. It's just the release of the Dynamax like battles, and I don't think those Dynamax Pokemon affect GBL in any way. So I don't think there's a point. There may be a point to cover just to get more newer eyes on the channel, but I don't think there's a point to cover it from a GBL perspective. So I don't know. I'm undecided if I'm going to cover it. If I do, it'll be like a third bonus video today. And then tomorrow will be top new teams for Ultra League. And then again, looking at the Little Galar Cup. So that is it. Let me know your thoughts below, and I will see you guys in the next one.